from the Pathway Studios in Johnston proper. You are live from the Path.
I am a working man. I get things done. Work for the Holy Ghost. Work for the Son.
And you're listening to Live from the Path, coming to you from the Pathway Studios here in Johnston proper. I don't even want to know what was said.
Hey, Ben.
I don't want to know.
Nothing was said.
No.
That's true. Nothing technically was said.
I so love what happened.
I don't want to know about it. Here's what we got going on the show this evening. One, I reading, but Boova will connect with this, I think. I've been reading in 1 Samuel last week.
Yeah.
And it occurs to me that perhaps I've become a bit cavalier in how I think about obedience to the Lord.
Okay.
Even in recognition of his goodness and holiness, I wonder if I've become a bit cavalier. And this is two situations in that rough time frame in Israel give me this impression. The first one is Saul, who offers a sacrifice because Samuel's running behind. And he basically lost the kingship and got cursed because of that. And secondly, when was the Philistine, somebody who had stolen the ark, and they're trying to bring the ark back, and anyway, the folks are moving the ark around, and to keep it from falling over, some dude reaches out to grab it and dies, right? And I think to myself, man, I mean, isn't the Lord overreacting? And then I think to myself, well, that seems like the wrong thing to think, doesn't it?
Yeah, but think about it. He didn't die because God was mad at him. Like, you merely cannot do what God told you specifically not to touch it for your own benefit.
Well, it does say specifically right then that the Lord's fear or the Lord's anger was kindled against him.
Yeah. So anyway,
I thought that too. Like, I thought, no, the dude's dying because he can't stand in the presence of the Lord or touch the mercy seat. But like it literally says, and Uzziah grabbed a hold of the ark as the oxen slipped or something, and the Lord's anger was kindled against him. And then David got mad at the Lord because he did that, because it calls it again in First Chronicles of what happens.
And this is the same thing as Moses' kids offering strange fire. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. I think it's got implications on how I think how we approach a few different things. As a matter of fact, there was a conversation we were having before the show having to do with demons and healings and things that I actually think there's a relevance to how we think about this. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, we talk about this stuff even when we're not on air. It's crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna hit that up. Also, there was New Release Tuesday is the name of a Christian. They publish like a newsletter and Facebook page and stuff about Christian music.
Uh-huh.
Right, and the music all comes out on a Tuesday, and they say hey, they do album reviews and whatever. Dude wrote an article I think a few years ago, and it was about the rise of rough stuff in Christian music. So foul language, like curse words,
like the Effie.
Yeah, like significant curse words.
Oh.
Right.
Not just the D
We were going to
word.
let the street cursing go.
Not the HE double hockey sticks.
No, and music videos with scantily clad ladies in it. And so he'd had a reaction, and then he said he largely let it go. And then I saw an article this week where he's like, I can't believe we're bringing this up again, but this has gotten worse. And it was news to me. Now, granted, I don't listen to a lot of I don't know, released Christian music. I don't know, I'm not some kind of underground hipster either. I just have a very narrow ground of things that I listen to. I don't listen to the radio really, and so maybe I'm just missing them. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I want to read through this article and get our reaction about how do you think about Christian stuff that claims to be Christian music that's got these types of themes and words and things, and you kind of mash it up with, there was a at least briefly, but it happened, number one on the Christian charts this week came from a crossdresser.
Okay.
I used a 1985 word. What do I mean?
Someone that's gender fluid?
No.
Drag? That's right.
Yeah, drag queen.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yeah. No, transvestite. No, that's even farther back, Mike.
I don't know.
You can't.
I like to watch NYPD Blue.
And Rocky Horror Picture Show, apparently.
Okay. Anyway, okay, so we got those two things on the docket. I think that's all I got. And then we'll do some advice on Dear Life from the Path. Unless I missed something, we can pick it up as we go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so question 1, 1 Samuel. Is it possible? Okay, so you can rehash the stories. Samuel says Saul, they're about to attack the Philistines. And Samuel's a week out, and they know this. And so before they were going to attack, they're going to wait, and they're going to say, well, when Samuel gets here, he's going to do a sacrifice, kind of bless the battle, and then we're going to go out and do the thing.
Because Samuel's the prophet in this situation.
He's the judge.
Yes, right.
Judge, prophet. Oh, well, yeah, okay, yeah. We'll take it. And so... So Samuel's there. He's the guy who anointed Saul. This is Israel's king. Actually, I was also thinking this week how embarrassing this is. Samuel's about to die, and he gets in front of these people, and he basically goes, look, God gave you the king. This was a mistake, but God found a king. And Saul has got to be right there, because it says he addressed the people of Israel. So, like, Saul's just kind of listening to Samuel go, what a mistake
you
this
asked
was.
for a bag of crap, and God gave it to you.
And it also makes it seem like he chose Saul because he was tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's a head above everybody else.
He's head above everybody else.
Yeah.
Saul just sitting over there, God's like, that one.
That one.
I can solve one problem for you. He will be easily seen when addressing a crowd.
I saw him first. Actually, it's funny, if you listen to the way historians talk about George Washington, they'll like say he was a head above everybody else. Like he was just a bigger dude. And so anyway, Samuel, they're supposed to wait for Samuel, and he's supposed to be there in a week. He's not there. And Saul goes, look, we're supposed to be heading into battle. And so he makes the sacrifice. And when Samuel shows up, Samuel goes, well, what the heck are you doing, man? Like, I do this.
That's not your move. Yeah.
Yeah. And Saul's explanation, and this is where I want you to hear yourself in this, okay? Because I saw myself in here. Saul goes, we were going to go into battle, and like you weren't here. I don't know what happened to you. It's not like Samuel's got a cell phone, or like they literally do not know where Samuel's at. He was supposed to be here, and he goes, we're going to end up in battle, and I did not want to go forward without having sacrificed to God.
Right.
So he says, I did the right thing. I got the end part right.
Yep.
This was how it was supposed to be, and so I honored God. That was my intent, was to honor God. Okay. And so he honors God in this way, or at least that's his belief. And then Samuel goes, not only it was that the wrong thing to do, but you're going to lose your kingship as a result of it.
Yep.
Like this is where it comes out. You're going to lose your kingship. Now Jonathan still leads this battle, and they end up still winning.
Yep.
Okay, but like this is the beginning of the end. The man just got the king. He just became the king, and now he lost it because he did something that he said, I want to show honor to God before we go forward.
Yeah,
It
Saul
seems like
started off pretty hard, like in a good way.
Yep.
He seemed to be going the right direction. Like it felt right as it started out with what he was saying, and then it just went south real quick.
Yep.
Rough.
Yeah. And so, and like I said, the other two examples that then popped into my mind as I'm thinking through this was Moses' two sons offer a sacrifice, or what the Bible kind of describes as strange fire. Things like an unauthorized sacrifice, even though they were the right guys.
I was going to say, were they priests?
Yes. Like
Okay.
they're in Moses' line. They're allowed.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it's something about the sacrifice that was unwelcome.
Right.
That
Yeah,
they
it
should
was like
not
at
have
the
done.
wrong time that they brought in the fire into the tent.
Yeah. And then the other one was, again, like the ark was going to tip, and you're like, the ark of God, it can't tip. Oh, we wouldn't allow it to be debased by falling into the ground. Dude reaches out for it, and then bam, judgment.
Did he say that Samuel's the only one that could run this sacrifice?
Well, he was the prophet in that situation that would have been responsible for doing that.
I remember,
Like,
are we still on Levitical duties
at the
here?
army.
Like, is
Yeah.
Saul not a Levite?
He's not. Yeah, he's not allowed.
Yeah, he
He shouldn't have done it.
not sacrifice guy.
So like what
And he
it,
knew that.
What it brings to mind to me is like if you read through the dredges, or what you guys say is fruitful, of the tail end of Exodus, and then through all the laws of Leviticus, like you realize that God is very on purpose.
Yes.
Like he spells it out like probably 8 times.
Right.
If you plan on using not fine-twined whatever, you know what I'm saying? If you thought you were only going to put 3 rings on the mercy seat, like he said 8 times, you're going to put 4.
Yep.
And they're going to be this cubits away. And like he just was not mincing any words. He repeated things 4 times. And so like it seems like in a cursory reading, if you skip, say, the tail into Exodus and through the laws of Leviticus, and then go, yeah, like just taken in its own seat, you're like, I don't know, someone had to do, like, Saul's reasoning seems pretty reasonable.
Right.
You know, except for God, like, had interacted with them previously and was very specific on all the things. It'd be like, hey, like we had a goat and we really needed to eat it, and all we had was its mother's milk. It's the only thing we had.
We could boil it in.
So we had to boil it in there. Like, I mean, what were you expect us to do? Not eat the goat at all?
Eat raw goat.
And like God's answer is yes.
Yes.
Yes. I told you specifically not to do that, right?
Okay. All right. So, interestingly, almost that exact situation where you get the showbread that are only for the priests, and David shows up
comes in
and says, we don't have any bread, and they go, here, take the showbread.
Eat it.
And all the priest asked was, look, have you kept your fellows been pure? Have they been non-sexually active? And he's like, we're out for battle, of course. And so they gave him the bread.
Eat the bread.
And then Jesus uses it as an example.
Yeah, Jesus affirms the example.
Right. Talking about the
Interestingly.
Sabbath, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the line at, right? Like, if Jesus can look back fondly on the bread of the presence eating and say, you were setting up, like, was it a man-made rule? The bread of the presence was a Levite only eats.
Yes.
Yep.
Right. Because that was their essentially their payment. Part of their payment was like they got that. That was what was allowed for them to eat because they weren't out working anywhere else. They were taking care of the temple or the tabernacle.
Yep. So, Nathaniel, sorry, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
Well, maybe. I don't know. I don't think so.
Have confidence.
Continue on.
Scintillating. Okay. So, one of the things I thought of is that, like, run the risk of being too cavalier with the end. So, like, there are places that. So, one of the things I was trying to think through was like, why does God care here?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are these? Why these things have to exist for a reason? And so, the thing that either came to me was we. I think run the risk of becoming very flippant with his holiness. And so think about the stuff that he put in place so that it was very clear to people that he was set apart from them. Okay. To recognize his goodness, his purity, his justness, his holiness, physical location of which only certain people could go into. Right. The separation, the clean, unclean on things that normal humans do,
right?
Like die and menstruate. And he goes, yep, I understand it's not a sin, but can't come in here
you're unclean.
Where you've interacted with it, right? Physical representations, okay? And so who gets to make these types of things and interact with God in this way? He's very clear about who it is because it's a reminder of his holiness. Now, think of how okay, everybody in the room's married. Think about when you first got married. I can't find a better phrase than what I want. I don't want you walked on eggshells, but like you appreciated the new situation that you were in and the relationship that you had with this person in a closeness that you didn't have before. Okay. You honored it. You were careful on how you interacted with this person. Okay. Now, for those, the longer you are married, I'll be on 18 years this year. Mike, same?
Pretty close.
Yeah. So
I got 3.
Okay, 3. Nathaniel?
It'd be 9.
Okay, 9 years. Okay, you're almost to 10.
Yeah.
You thinking ahead, Nathaniel? You got plans for 10?
I'm planning big.
Okay, good
planning
man.
big for 10.
Good man. So like the longer you're in those types of relationships, the more you become comfortable with the people in there, and the riskier it becomes that you start treating them in such a way that doesn't resemble the way you first did, right? It's a normal human tendency. And so I just wonder if these things exist because humans cannot handle the casualness of that type of interaction in this type of situation. Now, hold to that because now we're going to have to deal with Jesus and kind of New Testament-ish stuff.
Right.
But because that stuff makes sense to me. And then Jesus shows up as a human, and now you have a very interesting dichotomy because Jesus continues to treat Yahweh with reverence.
Right.
It's not like he goes in there and starts offering sacrifices The priests are still doing it. Like him, yes, eventually, okay? But then again, Jesus is walking the earth, and you are interacting with God as human in a very casual way. Grabbing the hem of his coat. He's touching people in the face and blessing folk, right? I think it presents to us a casualness in our interactions with God, like that. I think is okay. Actually, I think you can keep, but now you have to be cautious not to lose the right view of God, His holiness, His goodness, and to a certain extent that when He says to do something, you should not be reacting those things in a cavalier manner. And so even Jesus, right? Like if He says, "Hey man, cut off your right arm," He doesn't really mean that, but like He said, knock it off. Like you need to stop doing this. You're harming like when you're looking at other people in a lustful way, and you're acting outside of what I created for good. Not only are you harming yourself, but you're likely harming the world around you. You need to stop it. It wasn't just, "Oh, buddy, I really think you should think about giving that up." Or like take how fierce He is about forgiveness. Like I don't know how many people, like this is their barrier. People I've talked to, this is their barrier to Christianity. I cannot forgive like that. I cannot. I'll go to the church and I'll do the things, but like I can't, I'm not in a place to do that. And like you sure as hell are. Like I'm not saying it's not difficult, but like these are the things that Jesus is calling you to, the things that He says are good. And like I do think in eyes for our own in graciousness to our own fallibility, we do run the risk of kind of slowly like chipping away at the holiness of God, even if His holiness is always directed at our good.
Right.
He's a strong, good, awesome Father, but he is telling you that these are the good things, and like his forgiveness is fierce and unrelenting, as He expects our forgiveness to be. But it's not because He diminished the call to begin with. He didn't diminish the call to say, "Hey, go and sin no more." He didn't stop saying that thing, and He meant it that time. But He's gracious about our fallibilities. But like I do just, it feels like it is a question of God's holiness and how I position myself to Him in that way. If I'm cavalier about how I interact with Him, and probably how I respond to His direction for my life.
Yeah.
It brings to mind the people that say like, "Oh, my Jesus wouldn't do that." Like as if you have a separate version. Yeah. Like that bows to your whim.
Personal.
Or
Jesus.
Or people like that will say, "Yeah, I like to worship Him in my own way." You should probably worship Him how He said to be worshipped.
That's the flat out truth. You say that to an Old Testament God, it's rough times.
Yeah, they're the strange fire twins.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. You're the doofuses that like, yeah, but God will really dig on this. It's like your granddad coming up to you and say, "You know what I want for Christmas? I want a pair of these. I want a pair of these pants." And they're exactly what I want. You can find them at the store. They're $15. This is what I want. And then you show up with some kind of second-rate pants, like, and go, here's what I got you. And you're like, "I found this to be pleasing to you," and it was not at all.
Oh, that cuts me deep. Okay, side story. When I was in 7th grade, first time, 7th grade, you go to junior high, you start mixing all these people you never went to school with, okay? I was in a Secret Santa in my homeroom, and there was a man in my homeroom. This feels relevant to the story, but I'm not sure why it is. He's the only African American in the school. Yeah. Like that's it. There's one in my school district. Okay. He's my Secret Santa. He goes, on his list was, "I'd like a pair of Nike socks." I said, "Okay, no problem." I'm sick that day, but the day before I'd gone out and like wherever I went, I could not find these Nike socks. And so I bought a pair of Adidas.
I was just about to say it was Adidas, wasn't it?
It was. I must have been Walmart. It seems like a Walmart thing to do,
How dare you?
And then I'm not there to even defend it and to go, "Hey man, I wanted to get the Nike, but they weren't there." It looks like I just bought the pair of socks that was $4 cheaper or something, cheaper, easier, whatever. And it felt, I don't know, like you could read the whole thing wrong. The whole thing felt bad. And I bet I think of that every 2-3 months. It pops into my head, and I thought, like, I did Jamal wrong.
Yeah, you did.
I did him wrong.
Yeah, you did.
And I even tried not to do him wrong, and then I think I never even said anything. Like, I didn't have the stones to try to set it right or explain
Look,
myself.
man, I really wanted, but I failed.
I should figure out where he's at now and send him a pair of Nike socks.
Yeah, dude, I'm sorry. I did you wrong, and I think about it all the time.
Yeah, it's really weighing on me.
Here's the deal. I'm saying that jokingly, but you should absolutely do that.
Yeah, I should find him. Okay.
That would be hilarious.
That'd be hysterical. Be like, Jamal, we've never talked about this.
Yeah.
But when we were in 7th grade, I tried to get you the Nike socks, but the Walmart didn't have them, so I got the Adidas.
Yeah.
But I'm here to make this right.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about this every day for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh, man.
Anyway, relevant.
Yeah.
So why were the sons of Moses in the tent doing the strange fire at the time? Was it because Moses was gone with Aaron, or did they just go in at the non-appointed time for that specific sacrifice? I can't remember in that story why they were in the place at the wrong time.
I don't think it was hold on. I'll have to
Because
look.
it was the tent of meeting, right? Like that was
I
where
thought the deal was where they had to use the same fire, keep the same fire kindled all the time, and reuse that same fire from the same source. And they were bringing in, something they just struck up with the flint and steel.
Yeah, I don't
You know,
remember.
like, oh, we let it burn out on accident. So, I mean, it doesn't say that explicitly, but this sounds like something that could happen.
Just a bunch of good old boys. We brought the fire, Jesus.
We brought it up,
There's no Jesus then.
and then now you got the wrong fire.
That's a good thought, though. Is like God would not give you his intentionality that you had that you could not succeed at, right? Like without giving you a way to redeem it, right? So like you feel like he built in human fallibility in the way that the temple would run, or just said you can do this, right?
I mean,
like he called it to a high standard,
Yeah.
and they met it. There's a couple instances where it didn't turn out right, but for years and years and years, this thing's doing its gig.
I thought I'd looked into this before. So I think my belief was that there was two options. The first, this isn't Moses' kid. These are Aaron's kids.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, they're
these are-
definitely Levi.
That's what's throwing me off. I was
Sorry.
like, I didn't think Moses' kids were priests.
No, they're Aaron's.
Okay.
They're Aaron's kids. Okay, and so incense was made by mixing spices together
Yep.
and vaporizing them.
Yep.
And so it's possible that the strange fire is a description of any one of those items coming from an unclean source. Coals that come from somewhere from other than the altar, a mix of spices that weren't allowed, wrong time of day, blah blah blah. Okay.
Right.
However, the core of the issue is that it was a fire which God had not commanded them. And so even if it was right, even if the contents were fine, like
He didn't ask for it.
He didn't ask for it.
Right.
And so it had been very clear that God's priests are to obey the law promptly and exactly. Certainly Aaron's sons know better than to freelance, and here they are.
That's interesting. That's a similar description of what I've heard recently about the Tower of Babel. That was not the only tower of its kind.
Yes.
It was looked at in a lot of societies as a linkage point between the earth and the heavens for gods to be able to come down to physically manifest among their people, and so God did not need a stepping stone to come down to earth, and which is one of the reasons that he scattered it.
Yes.
And
He
so
also found it pathetic and said, well, I guess we'll go see what they're doing down there because it was not visible from the heavens.
he's like, what is that, like 30 feet?
Yeah, I guess
That's
we'll
frickin'
go
nothing.
look and see
You don't even know what a
what's
foot is yet. Leave me alone. Yeah, no, that's interesting. As like, even with the intentions of being sacrificial to God and ascribing worth to Him, He didn't ask for it. It wasn't the right time.
But that's the big
And so
danger,
there's-
right? Because the society that they were existing in had multitude of gods on offer, right? Like people
Yeah.
deciding how they were going to worship those gods was rampant.
Oh,
and so God says, look, He was setting them apart and saying, you need to follow exactly what I say because I don't want it looking like it's the same thing with the mix of polyester and the whatever. Like some of the laws that were in, they're like you're going to look holy. You're going to live set apart.
Right.
And it means that things that aren't even inherently sinful, you're still not going to participate in because it doesn't need to smell like Baal.
Yeah, sinful and cleanliness aren't always the same thing in a lot of those laws.
Yeah, they're definitely not.
correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
not.
they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, like that same chapter, God reiterates a warning to Aaron, and he doesn't speak to Aaron. This is like the one time he speaks to Aaron after his sons are destroyed. And he says, a reminder, you're not to be drinking alcohol in the area. And so it's very possible that part of what draws them into offering a sacrifice is like they'd been drinking.
Yeah, like there's a self-importance behind it, possibly. I mean, it's not for sure there, but like it just feels like a level of like, we are going to bring this to our God because we can offer him something, even if he didn't ask for it. We can bring him something that will be cleansing to his nostrils, like an incense that he will appreciate. Here's what we made, Lord. Kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
and that's what I'm saying. It may not be 1-to-1 for sure. There's self-importance there, and that's why it was a problem also.
And it might tie in a little bit to Jesus' parables about tithing, like with the mint and the dill, and like, you're not doing the things that I asked you to do in the first place, and then you offer me this strange fire as if this, like, I told you exactly what I asked for, and like I'm not like lacking. You're not like adding to me. I just need you to obey.
Not short on dill.
That's
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I got a whole world. Leave me alone.
It goes back to Jesus saying, like, quoting back to Micah and saying, like, I desire worship, like a mercy, not sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so, like, you're showing up and you're doing all the sacrifices, but your heart's bad and you're not doing the other things that I asked for. And so, no, I won't honor this. And these fellows are saying, look, we sacrificed. And he goes, I didn't ask for that. I want you to do what I asked you to do.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is like Yahweh always has a direct sight on the heart of why someone is doing something, right? So even something on its face that you're like, well, I don't know, that action seemed altruistic and like no problem at all. God goes, yeah, except for Saul was trying to be a big man here. He wasn't sacrificing to me because he felt like he needed me on the way to battle. He said, I'm sacrificing him because I want to win the battle. That's why. It wasn't to honor me, it was to honor himself. I don't know if that was the case, right? But like God has all the eyes to see that and knows whether people can make it, like, which is why he would overall disgusted in some of the worship that we're offering.
Well, and I keep coming back to that Uzziah thing where he touched the ark and died, right? Like, the reason the ark is moving in the first place is because God allowed his ark to be taken by the Philistines.
Yes.
Like David went and got his ark back and started bringing it back to town, and then ended up, Uzziah dies from touching it, and then David's like, I can't even have this in my house. This has to go to another house for a couple of months before I can even bring it back. Like, it's an interesting thing that I keep running into of like, did Uzziah, even in that moment, as he thought, oh, we can't let the ark fall, not think that Yahweh was perfectly capable of stopping that ark from going wherever it was going to go? Like, that ark could have just stopped itself. God could have changed anything. There's nothing that Uzziah needed to do for God that God could not have done for himself.
Yeah, actually, that brings up an interesting point, is because when they took it, they put it in the Temple of Dagon. They put it in multiple places,
and it melted.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I love that part.
And so think of that conceptually, though. You would say the ark should not go. That the belief then, from a human perspective, the ark should not go places where it could otherwise be tarnished by the uncleanliness of the world. It's freaking right in the middle of that place.
It can't be,
and it owned it.
Yes, right.
Right. And so it's a human attempt to guard something on God's behalf in a way that He did not prescribe.
No.
Right.
Yeah, no, I love that part where it's sitting in the Temple of Dagon, and then the temple keeps falling over, and they're freaking out, going, what's going on?
That's why he said, how do we get it back to them?
Yes. It's like, yeah, how can we get this back? Yeah, because the Philistines came and stole it, and they were like, oh, crap. There have been like 6 cities that have been struck down by pestilence, and the Temple of Dagon keeps like falling over and crushing itself because it's in the presence of the Ark of God.
Right.
That's so friggin' awesome. I'd never read that before I'd never paid attention to that before recently, as much as I paid attention to, like, who is it? Is it Isaiah that's at the... or no, Elijah is the one who calls down and says, your God might be relieving himself in the other area, right? I love that part because I go, oh, that's my God. Yeah. That's my God that pulls out that stuff. But then there's an even cooler moment that there's no human involved. It's just flat out the mercy seat is in the area of the people that shouldn't have it. And God's like, nah, I'm going to take this back. Yeah. This is how I do this kind of thing. It's like, that's awesome, man.
So now, so again, you roll it up, and here's, I think the risk is that the graciousness and relatability that is expressed in Jesus does not cancel out the prescribed call to do things in a certain way, to live a certain way that God gives. And like, even thinking of the instructions in the Old Testament from God, he's not more restrictive. It's not like Jesus liberated.
Right.
Now, what the relationship the Israelites had as a nation state, as like a nation who acted in a certain way politically versus like what it is to live in the covenant that Jesus then brings is a shift for them because they lose a relationship to the temple, but that's because whatever, Jesus is here, right? But like thinking from a Gentile behavior, we're not less restrictive than we ever were. As a matter of fact, in many ways, it is more commanding over how you live because it starts to prescribe not specific behaviors, but ways of looking at people.
Yeah, right.
Which are certainly harder.
It's any stuff.
Yeah, and so so then I think about we may be. I think there is a caution in helping people in their fallibility. Where we do folks a disservice, and I do myself a disservice by thinking of these things as casual suggestions from a God who loves me.
Right.
They are firm directions from a God who loves me. Because why wouldn't you be very clear and directive about, hey, these things are destroying you. These things are destroying people around you. You are opening yourselves up to situations that you shouldn't be in. Or, frankly, the work of God is not able to progress into the world because of the hardness of your heart and your lack of forgiveness. We're like, God, I'm really trying, but this person hurt me, and I'm going to need a few years to work through it. And, like, he expects you to repent of all kinds of things pretty directly. And these things are I don't think there's any reason to let go of that just because it's humanly hard. Now, what your repentance may mean, God, I accept that you're right. Right now. I accept you're right. And it doesn't matter what I think or feel about it. I need you to walk with me to let it go. But I will turn from that and force physical action to reflect the changes that you're making in my life. But like, I'm not going to wait till we agree. That's the fallibility of it. Yeah. Like, well, I'll let go of this particular sin. Like, the way to say it in honesty is when I'm good and ready. What we say is, I'm still working through it. You know, I really struggle with it, Lord, blah, blah, blah. Lord, I'll forgive this person. Like, I'm just not in the right space for it. And when I'm energized by my anger, like what, I don't care, whatever it is. And again, I'm not dismissing that these are super difficult things. Addictions are hard. Sin will take you over. Forgiving people who are nasty people who try to destroy you is dang hard, and it may take you 50 years to have a peaceful human earthly feeling about it, but you still have to repent from behavior and actions that don't align with what God calls as good, and that relates to his holiness. When he says don't touch the thing as it falls, you don't touch the thing as it falls. When you're supposed to wait, when there's one guy who can make the sacrifice, even if you're like, well, God, I think God would like this if I did this. It's the end result. But he said there's only one guy that do it, then you dang well wait till that guy does it.
Right. The result is obedience.
You think it would have been different if they would have asked him? And then Saul commissioned Yahweh and said, Yahweh, I would like to offer.
What should I do?
Yes, I would like to offer this sacrifice without Samuel here.
Which he did all the time. Like, up to that point, he had done it many times, asking God about that stuff and, like, to tell him, should I go up against them? Yes. When you hear this, I will send about, you will know that I have gone before you and taken the Philistines. And then Saul's like, awesome, I'm going to go. And then another time, should I go? No, don't go because I told you this. Like, he's done this before many times. Yeah. And this is the time that he goes, I think I know what God is going to want in this situation.
Skipped a step.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to go ahead and do it because, like, God called it, and God probably called them up against the Philistines to even go where they were going to war, whether it was the Valley of Salt or wherever. Yeah. Like, he called them there, but, like, if there was a sacrifice that needed to be done, like, he needed to do it the right way, and it wasn't the end result that he needed to do the right way. It was the obedience to Yahweh that he needed to do the right way.
Yeah, just like when Moses showboated the rock tap.
Yeah, or when he killed that guy.
Yes.
Or when he killed the guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Moses.
Well, he killed the guy.
Yeah. Anyway, like I think it's a reclaiming of some sense of balance that doesn't take anything away from Jesus's mercy and love and like awesomeness of walking as a human. But I think we read it the wrong way, and it's probably because we always read the New Testament first.
You know, that's interesting because the concept that you even said, like God's love perspective, like I feel like I keep running into, as I'm reading through the Old Testament and reading these stories, a lot of the times I catch myself going, oh, I don't know if I would have done it that way if I were God. Or I don't know if I'd call that love, because he's like, hey, you need to kill all these people and get them out of your way. This is your land. And at the other flip of it, I'm like, but you said don't kill people. Like, that's not how that goes. And it's funny because I keep running into this thought of like, I am absolutely not the holder of what is good and right. Like, my heart and mind are not the ones who determine whether or not something is right or good. I can't possibly understand love more than God does to go like, oh, it was super unloving of God that he had killed all those people and blah, 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 because I have this thought, this selfish thought that I have the right push on that. And that's one of the things that's flipped for me a lot in the last couple of months of really kind of like slamming my way through Old Testament has been like, if this is a story of God through a people, and like I'm supposed to be gleaning the identity of a God of Yahweh in this, it really threw off like, I can't define love or justice or righteousness or things like that in my selfish human understanding of them based off of a really rough morality code that I probably break on a daily basis. And so if I take a step back and don't look at that pridefully or self-righteously and go, I'm not the one who holds the right answers in this, so there's no way I can go look at that Bible and the stories of God and go, man, God was really rough in that moment. Because he was always just, and he was always righteous, and always loving. Even in, I command you to go kill those people. It is love incarnate that's happening there. He's redeeming his entire creation through a people's that all these things have to happen for him to absolve the curses that were thrown upon them, for him to be able to redeem them through the ultimate story of his son, Jesus, and the living spirit being a part of us and no longer needing temple, stuff like that, right? Like, it's, as you look at it, to weave its way through a redemptive story from the beginning that God played out, that like, I created you, you screwed up almost immediately, and I have to do this because I love you, and I'm going to redeem you so that you can be one with me again, or walk in the garden with me again.
Yep. Yeah, and in case this is helpful, just to kind of to tie off the some of our moral issues with God, kicking the Canaanites out. Let me ask this question: would you reasonably pray that you knew there's a guy who was a child predator, and he's on his way to the house to go do terrible things to a 6-year-old, and you said, Lord, if this man is out doing these things, I want you to stop him before he gets there. Dude gets hit by a train. You have a problem with that?
No. Then
you don't have a problem with the Canaanites.
Or the Egyptians.
They were doing some rough stuff for like Molech.
Or the Jebusites.
Right. Like, and now, here's where your quarrel is like, well, couldn't we just maimed him and maybe the guy should have lived? And like, maybe, I don't know. But what I'm telling you is that like the very notion of the things that you would pray actively for God to intervene in, and then he intervenes in a way that otherwise stops moral corruption and harm to people, like, which one did you want?
Right.
Yeah. Did you want him to stay out of it, or do you want him to get in on it? But like, you got to choose one. And so I think actually as humans, it's right that you have a problem with this, because you are irresponsible.
Yep.
Like, you should feel the depth of your own irresponsibility by going, that's heavy. I couldn't justify that in my own mind. It's because you're not capable of a moral good of that level, that of which that is an okay outpouring. That's why almost like war is particularly difficult, right? Because it's a human's judgment is this worth it? And how many times have we been wrong? Most of them.
Right.
Most of them. And so I get it's okay that it weighs differently on you, but as a concept, you really shouldn't have a problem with God having stepped in on moral corruptness and done something about it. Like, that shouldn't bother you.
Yeah. And actually, like, it's lost in some of the explanations, right? But like, the level of depravity that's coming out of those societies is not like the fact that God wants them destroyed and not assimilated, right? It speaks to the level of which God says this cannot continue.
Yeah, don't even keep their children or livestock.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
and they didn't even do it. Like, the Israelites didn't even do it. And God didn't do anything after that. He didn't go, look, you failed to do it, I'm going to send a plague. He didn't.
No.
They stayed.
They stayed mainly as servants.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're listening to Live from the Path. I don't know. You guys got any thoughts on that? Go ahead and just hit us up on the complaint line. The Bob Eisenhower Live from the Path complaint line. 515-517-0085. Call or text. We'd love to be able to hear from you. I don't know. Like, it seems like a lot to sort out. And I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts. Maybe the Lord's talking to you about it, and or whatever. I'd be interested in any comments you might have.
Yeah, let us know if that's the first time you've heard the word cavalier in the last 6 months.
See, the problem is I find one word and I like it, and then I'm going to overuse it for the next 6 weeks. And then someone else is going to take it up, and I'm like, man, I don't think you're using that right. And then I'm going to let it go.
My wife says I say
of you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
My wife says I say bellwether all the time.
Oh.
Like, I don't know why. It just comes up in conversation a whole lot.
Yeah.
I love that word.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
Don't look at me like that.
Okay. All right. Hey, there was an article, and it's an editorial from New Release Today. It was titled, "What the Bleep is Happening to Christian Music?"
Oh.
A few years back, I wrote the most visited editorial in our site's history titled "No More Bleeping Christian Music." It went viral overnight, instantly enraging one side while empowering the other, complete with plenty of snark and accompanying gifs. I took a brave, deep dive into the dark and dank corners of the Christian music industry, corners where artists dropped F-bombs in their worship without warning, welcomed guest artists who didn't subscribe to the Kool-Aid, and justifications of being honest and real poured over anyone who batted an eye. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about, this honest and real business, the celebration of refusing God's holiness. Pretty scandalous stuff. The editorial was read tens of thousands of times, and I fielded thousands of comments, something any writer always loves to see happen. Engagement isn't, well, nobody cares. In this article, or judge-filled rant, depending on your perch, I litigated the curse word in Christian circles and questioned its necessity in the music that most of us have grown to love, respect, and trust. I worried that we were beginning to see a shift in acceptable lyrics, and we were witnessing the early stages of what I viewed at the time as an epidemic. While I'll admit that we're not to the point of what we all experienced over the past couple of years, the issue hasn't exactly disappeared either. Multiple times a month, our team drops singles from our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music, deletes albums from the site, and pivots away from artists who decide to swear or be overtly sexual in their music. It's making good on a promise I made at the time that as a Christian media company, okay, blah, blah, blah. I'm proud to say New Release Today has held to the standard. Why? It's not because we determined years ago to sit on a throne and play content police, pointing out everyone's faults according to our plank-filled eyes. Gross. It's because we care about you, our readers, Christian music fans, parents of kids, youth pastors, radio programmers, developing minds, other artists, all coming to us to seek refuge from the barrage of what society continues to deliver and plug in as acceptable. I find myself perplexed that I'm here again writing about the content of what we continue to hear and see in Christian music. I guess it's been a busier month than usual, and some recent developments have ignited new alarms. Okay, so here's a couple examples. In the past 2 months, we've had a few glaring examples of how this issue continues to invade what once was sacred space. Derek Webb, a self-professed Christian music agitator, released a video just in time for Pride Month for his controversial LGBTQ-affirming track, Boys Will Be Girls. In it, he teamed up with Christian musician and drag queen Flamey Grant, cute, who recently activated his fan base to prove his relevancy and scored a temporary #1 album and song on iTunes. The music video captured the transition of Webb from his typical white t-shirt and 5 o'clock shadow, the accompanying flame-fanning press release read, into a fully bedazzled and blue-wigged drag queen. Always wanted to get ahead of a controversy, Derek's team had response baked in for all the comments they would eventually get. Well, you know what they say, read one doozy of a line, there's no hate like Christian love. Yes. That was actually in a press release for a Christian song. Let's call all the detractors hate-filled bigots before they even open their arrogant, out-of-touch mouths. Preach it. Let it be forever known that I don't care if Derek Webb thinks I'm a bigot. And how dare you mock Amy Grant? She's a legend. Let's see. I was trying to think. Look, there's another one. Here we go. Capital Christian Music Group, owned by Universal Music, is the largest producer and publisher of Christian music. They have dominated for decades. Their artist roster far exceeds any other label or label group in Christian music. So they've got Newsboys, Hillsong, Chris Tomlin, Jeremy Camp, Toby Mac, blah, blah, blah. This past week, they emailed out new music from Jesus Culture, We the Kingdom, Belonging Company. Hey, We the Kingdom's got new music out.
All right.
And the new album video from Dante Bowe. That last inclusion surprised me because Dante's new album is getting lots of attention for all the wrong reasons. The recently released music video for his vibey summer gospel jam, Wind Me Up, features dozens of scantily clad women partying up in a sexual pose after pose. The lyrics are about desire, companionship, and arguably lust. His album is full of more of the same, in between some great worshipful moments, but it's hard to know what I'm getting into when we're talking about Jesus' nail-scarred hands one moment and giving in to sexual desires while dropping bombs multiple times on the bridge in the next. The same major label group saw Judah, all capitals, one of its artists, release a new single this past week titled Beatitudes, complete with an explicit version and a family version. He drops the phrase, I'm out of F's, on verse 2. The clean version of this Christian song changes it to "I'm out of lux." This is new and something I haven't seen. We have a major Christian label pushing sexual and explicit lyrics and videos alongside legacy church worship albums and contemporary Christian artists. Well, that's not confusing at all. Okay, anyway, that's probably enough of that. Well, I don't know. Reaction? Is he being too persnickety? Or is he protecting the right types of things? Good.
Yeah.
What else?
Yeah, I think he's protecting the right types of things. I think there is a distinct difference between worship music and Christian music.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Any of the things that we've just talked about is definitely strange fire category for worship music. That's a solid no. Definitely not. I don't know that I don't want it in Christian music either. But like I was just thinking of a song that there's a couple songs that I can think of that have street swear words in them that I actually like, and they're Christian, music. And like one of them was there's a song called "Prophesy Your Promise," and like for some reason I really like these words, but it's going to come off a little foul. But it says, like in the middle of the chorus, it says, "Fear can go to hell, shame can go there too. I know who I am. I belong to you."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's the lyrics, right?
Yep.
And so like you could have not said that. There's a power in the way that it was said, and I'm not offended by it.
That's also just an American swear. I mean, it's not even a Bible problem.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. But then again, so is the F word, except for it points. I have a harder time with swear words that point back to actions or devaluing acts, right? In a slang way that is, I don't know, that treats us less set apart than God created it to be, right? Like, so if someone's going to say the A word, or whatever to reference your rear, like you're not degrading anything, right? It's just we've decided that word is no good, right? The F word, the B word, you know what I'm saying? Words that like are almost only said in derogatory or cheapening something that God has honored. Those words I have a harder time with, and I think that they have zero business in Christian music at all.
Yeah.
So I think that like he makes a good point of hiding behind like full honesty, right? Like I use bad language around the fellas in this room more than anyone in my life, right? When I swear, it's around other Christian dudes, especially these Christian dudes, because it's not a stumbling block for them. I still don't use those words, right? But like in general, like if I was going to say a bad word, it would be around these fellas because there's no risk here, right? Like everyone in this room is following Jesus, and like I don't see it as a stumbling block to them. And sometimes I probably just find it a more comedic phrase than using a different phrase. I'm not saying that's good and right and holy. I'm not saying you should live that way. I'm just saying that if I'm just being honest, I swear more around the guys in this room than I do anywhere else, and I was a construction worker.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. Like the various people, you have different groups of friends and relatives and communities, and like the types of words that are acceptable in one company are maybe not the same. The types of words my grandma would use are different than the types of words that I could use in front of her are different than the types of words I would use in here. And so, like, I know, and I wish Dan were here because I'm pretty sure like this is we
don't agree on this.
Yeah, I think this is contentious.
For him.
But like I don't know. You got two problems. One, are you being vulgar and crass? That should be out. And two is if you're not being vulgar and crass, but it's something that society otherwise says is not good, and you know that by doing that, using that word in front of someone else, it gives them the wrong impression about something else. Yeah. Then I think you should protect that. Just because, like, why would you be so selfish about that? Like, this is not about your rights. Like, why wouldn't you? And so this gets to Mike's point where, like, I actually, I'm Cavalier. Like, there's some words that don't, like, society may have a problem with, but like in a context like this, it's no consequence. It's not being used crassly, and no one is stumbling over it. Like, these are just words, like sounds we've strung together. There's no reason to overcook the fish. There's no moral authority in the United States that says which words are good and bad. Like, we're generally using a bunch of like 1950s level of, can I say this or can't I? I could get to say TT and caca, and I can't otherwise use like I'm out. It doesn't make any sense. I don't say those words.
That made me physically uncomfortable.
As it should. Okay. And so like people who are unwilling to say something because they thought it would be like didn't have the right conversation around things because you wouldn't use a word that's got some points to it. And so like I think there's you're overcooking the fish. But like, am I sensitive? Like in a Christian song that you're going to publish? Like,
Right.
Here's the thing. That was for you. That was for you. That was for you and your attention. You got to say, like, is it crass to say I got no F's to give? Well, I mean, you're not using it in a crass way, but you failed evaluation point number 2. You knew this was going to be a stumbling block
Right.
for people. And rather than your work pointing people to Jesus, now we're talking about you. And you're going to stiff arm someone about Christian liberty because you want to say it? That's selfish and dumb.
Yeah, and also the fact that the Christian music genre only exists because Yahweh exists, right? Like that genre is only available because of a worship of God, right? So like if you want to pull that on other music genres that have no context or a point back to a risen Savior, then that gets to be your freedom, right? But like at the end of the day, the platform that you're using, of which you are making money, feeding your family, gaining fame and notoriety, does not exist without him, right? And so like the platform is, you owe him all of it. Right. And you're not using it that way. You're using it as a platform to be a big deal or a more real guy. As if like I've met some pretty rough customers, obviously. And I've talked to them about Jesus before. And like, yeah, it's a different conversation than I have with my kids.
Right.
And it's a different conversation than I have with someone who is older than me from a generation that would not take a strongly worded, even without swear words in it, right? Like even a strongly worded conversation comes off offensive too, and so like those conversations will differ by people, but I can't think of one reason why I would ever proclaim the good news and have to pepper it with the world's version of crass language.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that.
Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to regale you fellas in the room of a story on how I slipped on the ice outside and fell on my caboose, yeah, I'm going to say you guys never guessed, but I totally biffed it on my beep on the way in.
Yeah.
And everyone would go, ha ha ha, I know what you meant, right? Like, not crass, just a story, right? But like, I've not ever once tried to, and once again, like if you were to say, like, take Jesus at his word and say, when you're put in situations when you need something to say, like, because the gospel doesn't come out like a pamphlet all the time, right? Then you shut up and I will do the talking. The Holy Spirit will show up. The Holy Spirit ain't showing up with that word, right? He's going to speak to hearts, And frankly, like when it comes to the language thing, I know this is contentious, right? But like some people, it's an addiction. Some people, it owns them, right?
Yeah.
They can't control the fact that every third word out of their mouth is an F-bomb, right? Because of the situations they were in or the family they grew up in or whatever, like it owns you. There's a difference between that language owning you and you owning it. Like you use it when you choose to use it, not because it defines you.
Yeah, I've been on both sides of those coins.
Yes.
For sure. Like I working in bars, just hearing all that all day, every day. I mean, my language was foul at all times. And I would fake it in front of people that I didn't want to disrespect. But the real me was the one that was dropping F's every 3 words. And then I've been on the flip side where it's like, I can use colorful language, but it doesn't break down my communication and it doesn't hurt anybody else. It's just like, this is kind of just in that moment, I used it for emphasis, or I used it to tell a different story or a colorful story that I thought was funny with that context. And so, yeah.
It's mostly for comedic reasons.
Yeah, like, hey, I dropped the A-bomb. Funny.
I don't swear when I'm angry, for sure.
No,
like
I don't
Same, yeah.
Like those words don't come out of my mouth ever in anger, right? Like it's always for like some kind of comic flair. And maybe that's not good either. Like if you feel like that's a conviction that we're wrong about, I'm open to hearing that.
Yeah.
My wife calls me out because I have apparently to her I have the funniest road rage on the planet, because like I would never flip somebody off on the road if they almost cut me off, or if somebody like even bump my car or something. I'm not coming out screaming Effie at them. In angry moments I'll be like, I hope you have a good rest of your day. And it just like, that's the way that comes out for me. That's my angry language is funny, ridiculous, passive aggressiveness.
Yep.
I never drop F's or scream at people with like harsh language.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think overall it's profane because the platform that you're using it on exists only because a holy God exists. And maybe that's a weak reason to find it disgraceful.
Well, but like I guess in general, if you're gonna, well, yeah. If you didn't say this is a Christian album, you didn't market it as one. You said, "Look, I'm just a dude," and like half your songs were worship tunes, and the other half were ladies on a beach.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're living a confused life, friend. And like I guess that's the thing. There's a difference. There's a difference in struggling with something, or go, yeah, hey man, like trying to. I find myself constantly drawn into the life with these ladies and the booze and the whatever, and like, okay, maybe you are, and maybe I sympathize with that, and then you go, it's true though, and so then I set up a 15-hour video shoot to demonstrate
music video.
all my struggles.
That part's different.
Like okay, like that's not, you're being dishonest, and that's it. I don't like to be jacked with. I don't like you to jack with me. You're lying to me. If you were just open about it and said, look, I think I'll sell more records under a Christian label, and so I'm going to try to get that because you guys are suckers. And maybe 6 of the tunes were awesome. And you know what? I'll worship to it anyway because you can't thwart God's good plans. I don't care.
Yeah.
But
David was a rough fella, and he wrote some sweet psalms.
Yeah, right. And so, fine. I think I'll work with whatever you put out there. Is it okay for this guy to protect that and go, nah, I can't recommend this because like this guy's playing, he's playing you. And if you can worship to some of these things, go ahead. But like, I don't want it to be a surprise that this person is not a good influence. And that's probably a key lesson to learn.
Yes.
Is that like, you got to be cautious about these folks. You don't put them on a pedestal either. They are humans, and you should be gracious and patient with that. But there's a difference between people who are trying to walk humbly with their God and people who are just trying to make money from you.
Right.
And you should know that.
I like it.
You like the swearing?
What? Yeah, the swearing.
Okay, hit me.
Think about this.
Swear at him.
Let me swear at you for a minute.
Okay.
You got these fellas, right? They're singing tunes, and they may be biblically based in nature, and they're just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we shouldn't put them up on a pedestal. And I think that them swearing in the song, one, is a stark reminder of that, and two, like they're if they're putting in a song, they walk around and talk like that. So for them to not do that, it seems like a front. It seems like a fraud,
like a repentance.
No,
like a change from the thing that you shouldn't do.
No, they're doing it anyway, though.
So you think they're being more authentic to themselves?
They're stubbornly lacking repentance.
No, that's not what I'm saying. They're using words that I think that, like we just said, comedy and doesn't actually necessarily mean anything because it's all a bunch of syllables mashed together.
Do you legitimately think though that they don't recognize that this could be a stumbling block?
I think maybe, but also like if you have it like. What do I want to say here? Like Troy was saying, hang out in the bars. Or blue collar man. He uses the cussies with no regard. That's just how people talk. And so maybe this fella is regaled.
Okay,
with,
funny enough though, the rest of his album contains no profanity. He decides to drop it one time
in a song called "The Beatitudes."
Yeah.
Like, let me ask you this, Nathaniel. You've taught youth group, right?
Yeah.
You ever swear during your youth group presentations?
I've wanted to.
Okay, but excellent point.
I appreciate the honesty of that.
Wait, but did you?
No,
because you knew, right? I've taught many a sermon. I've never swore during a sermon. Even if I got some loose lips outside in a particular context, I've never done it.
Same.
Right? It's controllable.
That's true. Yeah, I say Effie's just because it's part of my language for the most part. If I'm in the right crowd, that I feel like it's okay. But I've never cursed in front of my mother and or mother-in-law, like ever, not once. I wouldn't do it because it would be disrespectful to them, and I think it would throw off their thoughts of me and my character based off of that.
Yeah, basically, based on Nathaniel's argument, we just killed our brother and then said, what am I, my brother's keeper? Am I in charge of keeping this guy from harm? I get to be me.
No, I do
Frank
see.
Sinatra did it his way.
I do see where you're coming from, though. There's an authenticity to, like, this is my normal language, and so I'm not going to change that or anything just to write a worship song. Like, this is how I talk. And I'm trying to pour out my authentic self into my work.
Is
that kind of cover what you're saying?
I mean, maybe this is just me. Have you ever been praying and you while you're praying you're doing the cusses?
I mean, I've screamed at God in cuss words.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've not. That's not happened to me personally, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have.
Boy,
it was terrifying.
Okay, now hold on a minute. Is that not different than recording it, doing 25 takes, writing the words down intentionally, listening to it, having your A&R man go, dude, I'm not sure, and you go, yeah, totally, do it, release it.
Yeah,
Isn't that different?
And there's a recognition to it, though, that they released a family version that didn't have it.
They knew it.
Yeah, that's the rough part. Like, you
radio
recognize that there's a split between who should and should not hear that. And calling it literally the family version is interesting, of like recognizing that in family wholesome areas you shouldn't be saying effies. But like, who is like, if you're a single dude, you can listen to it.
Yeah, that's right. If you're rough around the edges, you should take this in.
Yeah. Are you a pile of crap like me? Effies.
To be clear, I'm not trying to defend this man's one song.
Yeah,
Right, I get you.
What I'm saying is, I think Christian music should have swear words.
Okay, so you're not defending this man,
Yeah.
but you would like the area in which he's taken off. And
Yeah.
so we should have more swears.
Yeah.
So like that's
be
interesting.
clear.
That's interesting because so like there's an artist named NF. I don't know. I'm sure you guys have all heard of him, but if
Nope.
not, okay,
I don't
whatever.
get those channels.
NF. He's a Christian rapper, and he talks a lot about like trauma. His mom died of an overdose of drugs and like left him, and he's got some angry stuff towards his family and some angry stuff towards other people. Like it's raw stuff. Like it's real. From what I can really relate to, and his worship music, I feel is a different style than when he's just kind of being a real human being and trying to equate that through his music. And I think that's a different zone. Kind of like you're saying there's a difference between Christian music and worship music. I think you can have music that is intentionally worshiping and ascribing worth to the Lord and that people can use to continue worship on their Sundays, on their drive to work or whatever. And then there's some Christian music that's more about like, this life sometimes can be rough, or sometimes this life can be great. And it's not necessarily a song that's just about Yahweh. It's just a song about life. And I think that I might advocate that, okay, if there's some music and language in that, fine. But like exclusively, I think that if you're putting yourself out there with worship tunes that are meant to be a description of God's worth and offering him good incense, I would never say that that's the right place to have that. And then on the flip side of the vulgar stuff and like sexuality, absolutely not. Especially if you're doing a video with scantily clad ladies. Like, you know that that's rough for everybody. You're just putting that out there because you're trying to appeal to people.
Is that different for you, Nathaniel? Or do you think they should do the sexually clad ladies too?
No, I think get rid of that.
Why? Why is that okay?
It seems different.
Why?
Prostrate yourself.
Yeah. So like I'm going to write a song called Dudes Be Struggling.
Okay.
and then I'm going to fill it.
It's got a dude in a pickup truck with a Bible next to him in the parking lot of a strip club.
Dudes be struggling with saying the following words.
Dudes be struggling with
And
looking
then
at this.
it's an acrostic of the F word.
Yeah, let me describe the things that I shouldn't be looking at that I'd be struggling with. Like, nah.
Well, and here's the thing: is it's also it's impersonal, right? Like, I see conversational realism to be way more real, right? Opposed to a commercial song that you're selling to a masses that you don't know, right? You're not making a connection. You're not like, hey, know me for real. They know you in a phony way because you're presented an album to them of your best cuts. I didn't hear the first 10 that you put out that stunk like a diaper, right? Like you produced it, you shined it up,
Stunk like a diaper.
you put it on iTunes with you looking at a mirror giving the double guns, and then you're like, look, world, this is me. It is not you. So, selling your authenticity to a bunch of people you don't know is a bit of a hard claim.
I feel like music is that, though. It's a two-way street. Like, I get it. It's the commercial music where you're making money off it, right? Like, you're making money off of it because you are appealing to a large audience, and the bigger audience you can appeal to, the more money you're going to make because people are going to buy music that they feel like they can relate to. I get that. But, like, there's a level of, I think that there's some artists, obviously not all of them, that are, it is a healing thing for them to write out the things that they're dealing with, whether it's rough stuff or whether it's positive things going on, things that are relating to their lives, and that they feel like they are putting out as their ministry or whatever to be able to relate to people out there that can listen to their music and then go, no one has ever understood me before, but this person does with this music. I feel like I have plenty of songs that I can listen to that I go, I didn't have those words, but now that I've heard them, I appreciate that they were said, because I can pull from that and go, dang it, that makes sense to me. I can relate to that, and I feel better having an association to someone who's put out this kind of music.
So
Yeah.
the fact that God's in your life, though, right? Like, that's the whole game changer, because like God shows up in the situation that you're in and then calls you out of it. It's not enough just to show up and pat people on the back and say, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree, actually. Well, I think there's two tiers to it. First of all, no one is, to Mike's point, no one's just releasing music like the first time they played it.
Right.
They're practicing it. They're getting it right. So you're still posturing.
Yeah.
There's
People
still
in the room are rewriting it. Yeah.
And you're just, and sometimes people who are like very earnest musicians will go, that's too commercial, I won't release that. They actually did, right? They wrote something and then rejected publishing it based upon its perception of being too mainstream. And so, but second to that, I think there are, like, this is the magic in artistry where people can say something. I think you put it in a really cool way. Like, people say something in a way that you couldn't find the words for, but then you can borrow someone else's words. Okay. Are you
That's worship music.
Of right, exactly. And so you're telling me of the amount of words available, the only way to communicate that in that song is that word? I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I get that.
I'm not buying it.
Sometimes it hit different.
Sometimes it do be like that, Nathaniel.
Dudes be struggling with this.
Plus,
and this.
What is Christian? I mean, I understand the difference between worship music and Christian music, but like, what is Christian music? Is it just a dude?
People who call themselves Christian releasing music.
Right.
Well, okay. So this guy's in a unique position.
The Killers are Christian.
Like the new release Tuesday guy, because he's like, he's got a newsletter.
Yeah, I mean,
people subscribe to his view on things.
Yeah, he can gatekeep all he wants. I don't care. But like, I just think if you're putting out tunes and and you call yourself a Christian, cuss it up. Sure, do it.
I don't understand why how you hold this position based upon the conversation we just had.
Because I feel like. Maybe I'm thinking about cuss words wrong, but I feel like they don't actually, especially even it.
Okay, think about that. Not necessarily the words themselves, but what they're pointing to, right? Like, let's just use his phrase, right? I got no F's to give. Is there any reason I would use that type of phrase in any regular conversation, authentic or not? I have no having sex with another person to give. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, but that's not what he means.
Oh, okay. But would you let your kids listen to it?
That's a toughie.
Would you be all right if your kid's saying it? As long as they kept it in the non-crass context, you'd be okay with it. To everybody. I mean, because this is a song for everybody. This is a song that like anybody can listen to. And so we gave the example that like individual situations and circumstances, maybe it's okay. But we're saying like general. And so your kid starts using it. You're like, man, that's fine.
Honestly, I know this is going to sound outrageous, but I would say yes. But no, because I don't want them to be seen as something like crass or weird, like in a society that sees that as crass and like unacceptable.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But like,
it would be unnecessarily pot stirring.
Yeah, that's the point.
For what? For a personal, because I want to.
Sure.
Yes, sure. That's my point. Is that like it's not for any furthering of anything that's good. It's simply because it's a very American posture to go because I want to, and I should be able to.
And it's almost in that situation, like the person is using it as a way to seem more relevant and approachable with the music that is meant to be Christian music, right? Like that, you're absolutely right. There's no reason that's the way that needs to be said. I'm all out of F's, I think, if I remember specifically what it said. Like, it's not an enriching part of the song. It's not like a particularly powerful lyric, and it's not something that couldn't have been like used in another way. And they're probably not, putting it in there going, oh man, this is how I talk, and they can't change me, and I'm going to go ahead and do it. And even if they were, it really wouldn't matter.
Even if they did, I don't think it matters.
It wouldn't even matter. But like, it's more of and it's the same situation, I think, interestingly enough, I think it's the same situation as the person that does Girls Can Be Boys, because it is a way to relate to a larger audience in a Christian medium. Like that song was written to be inclusive of people that feel excluded from this space. Throwing an Effie on a song called The Beatitudes feels the exact same to me. It is trying to be the cool Christian that like, oh, we say the F word too.
Okay.
Like we drop them too.
So it's also a bit of arrogance on our part, right? Because like I don't completely disagree with some of the things Nathaniel's saying.
Same.
But it's the pernicious belief that your love is better than his. Right? The way that you would talk to him would be a better way than God would talk to him. If you spoke to him in this way, it would speak more volume than if the Holy Spirit had done the talking and not used that word.
So it's basically saying, Lord, I know what you want as an end result, and so I'm gonna get there my way to get the things that you want, like Saul, like Abinadab and Abihu, or whatever, like Aaron's kids.
Does that
like the
change?
guy saving the ark?
Does that change the way that you look at the way that we talk?
No, because I think that like there's a difference in context. I think there's a difference if there's a hard issue, because actually here's the thing is that like there is a hard issue that says I know this is going to cause caused my brother to stumble, even if I think he's a self-righteous turd.
Wait, what? So what about that would be causing
stumble.
someone to stumble, though? Like to Nathaniel's point, right? Like, what if all Christians just now decided they could use the S word? Would it really degrade us in any way?
I don't think it's the fact that the Christians would be degraded. I think it feels like another way to allow or invite an attack on God's character based off of his people if we are doing things that we know society says is like a rough thing and you would never expect a real Christian to do.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I was just about to say something that like most people on a Christian podcast wouldn't say. Like they wouldn't use the words I'm going to use, but like Timothy cut penis to make sure that the thing that he didn't do, like his situation was not a barrier to other people meeting Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So like they would even know. And he said he does it. Okay. And so like even that, what do we not know the situation?
I have no idea what you're talking about saying Timothy cut penis.
He gets circumcised.
Right.
Okay. I thought you might have been saying he wanted to say the word penis in his letter, but then he was like, "Oh, the Greeks are going to take away."
No, he gets right. No, think whatever. Oh, hey man, you can't use this word or not. The guy goes, "Look, I don't want it to be a barrier." Is it okay that he's uncircumcised? Of course, God doesn't care. But he goes, I don't want it to be a barrier contextually. And it was a specific group of people. He didn't have to do that to the mission to the Gentiles. But because of where he was going to go, he goes,
he knew it was going to be an issue.
I'm going to do this.
So let's call it a weigh and measure, right? Is the most important thing to be known in Christian music that God is good? Or is the most important thing to be known is that you're dope real? Like you are street real? What is the thing we lead with? What is the thing that we want people to know? Is it more important that you know how real I am because of the words I use, opposed to how good God is?
I mean, the God is good is always the most important. I guess I don't look at those as so contentious that it's one or the other.
It definitely is, though. Like that, like it is, especially with Tranny Song and the guy who put the F-bomb in there for no discernible reason. And the overly sexualized summer romp of a gospel tune.
Right, you had to choose one or the other.
Yeah, okay, I see your point.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Then of course, the God is good is the more important.
Disagree, Nathaniel?
No, yeah, I'm with you.
Your freedom should elicit. You should be able to do what you want. That trumps that God is good.
He's throwing you back in the face.
I'm just asking. I sympathize. Now, okay, but let's see. Where can I sympathize with the thing that Nathaniel is saying? Is the question is, well, here's what gets interesting. Everybody's fake. In some way,
yes.
Everybody's fake.
It's all sinners writing about a perfect God.
Of course. And like it's some sort of polished view of yourself. And some of it is, hey, like I want to connect with the person who thinks that they're outside of God's love. And if I do it this way, then they'll hear that maybe that's a bridge. But like, again, I think you should have a very strong caution to go, hey, this is something that I think that although is outside of the prescribed means of which God says is okay, as a matter of fact, flies in a few of its phases. I think it'll ultimately get to what we want. So like you handle it your way, God, I'll do it my way, and we'll meet at the end. And like, it just seems like a no. Like, are not God's means the proper ways to get to the end? Can I not trust it? And because this actually, so we take it to a completely different field of play. This is Jesus's mostly described pacifism. Do I think in most cases nonviolence works? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Do a few people die in the process? Probably. Right. But is that the thing where things ultimately change? Yeah, way more likely. Where do humans normally go? Well, I hear what you're saying, God. I hear the right way to approach this, but like, here's the human ends.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look weak. I think this actually protects my family. I think this gets to where we want to be. And so I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it's fundamentally different.
Maybe Nathaniel's right.
No, he's not.
I heard a song.
He's not.
I heard a song like a week ago, or maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it was like the gospel for laborers, or worship for laborers.
That's a good
that.
song. I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, and it says the A word in it,
Yeah.
and I heard it, and I immediately went like, yeah, I know that word. I use that word.
Feels like a friend.
This feels like me. And then 15 minutes later, I heard it again. I went, I just got suckered into that crap, didn't I? I just got flat out suckered into this crap because they're like, guess what? We cuss too. And I'm just like, crap, this is not the right place for it.
Would you write a liturgy for that?
No.
Like if you were writing a liturgy for your family, for your church, and would you be using words that God wouldn't like?
No.
That feels like it's the worship music, though, side of things, rather than just a guy who is a Christian writing music.
Right, yeah, the distinction between Christian worship.
Okay, that's not a problem for the publishing industry, but why isn't it a problem for the guy? If you're like, what distinction do you make that I'm a Christian and here sometimes I put up worship music and then sometimes, God, hold tight, I do my own thing? Isn't I mean,
especially because you're given the option, like, will you catch me swearing off the cuff more than you will catch me swearing in a prepared way? You know what I'm saying? Like in a casual conversation where I'm coming up with the first things that come out of my mind and heart, will you find me swearing more in that situation? Yes, right. So, but if you have the opportunity to craft, to craft a thing and present it to somebody, I would clean up the parts of me that after having a second thought about it, I'm like, I probably
Absolutely.
Most of the problem in my whole life has been things that have come out of my mouth that I'm like, dang it, I could go for a take back. I did not actually mean that thing that I said. I said the worst possible thing at that moment. Dang it. So like the true part of me wishes I wouldn't have said that. The real me, right? The person goes, like, crap, I wish I would have been able to think of that faster and have done better. So like if the honest me doesn't honestly want to have said what I said, the honest me wants to go, crap, I wish I wasn't such a defunct broken sinner.
Right.
I wouldn't have said that thing.
Given the opportunity to manufacture this thing that you're putting out there, which is what you're doing with the words regardless, you could have put out the better version of yourself.
Yeah, so the question is like, am I posturing? If I clean up myself, is that a posture or is it a right revealing? Right, that like if given the opportunity, it's not a posture. It's me cleaning up a mistake I had made.
Exactly. And I
screwed up.
And you should always be doing that. Yes, right.
That's right.
Yep.
I don't think it's a problem to write a song that goes, "Hey, I screwed up."
Right.
That's fine. Right.
Like, it doesn't need to be like I effed up by Hillsong.
Right. That's right. This isn't a covering up. This is like, but are you intentionally using things to like? Can you say, for example, "Hey, I struggle with." Again, I've struggled with staying out of the life of a musician that puts me at these risks. Sure. Do you have to describe it in graphic detail? And do you have to use foul language to get there? No. It's
Absolutely
not necessary.
Right.
Because then you're not thinking on things that are good and right and holy.
Yeah.
Right? You're not Philippians your way through life. You're focusing on sin and reverse worshiping the thing that you're running from, the thing that you're trying to rescue from.
Yeah, like I heard someone give a testimony one time before their baptism. And like used real flowery language, like wrote it down in their phone as the speech. And I had that. I'm like, I mean, I get that this is you and like you're trying to be real in this, but like you deliberately chose to like write that down, vet it out, read it aloud, like did not care about the repercussions of that or the image that you're putting out there. Like, I mean, I get that you're trying to be yourself in your testimony, but why not be your best self in your testimony? Not this rough,
you could say,
I'm still in sin stuff.
Yes, I was in a trap house last week. opposed
Yeah,
to
right, yes.
I was in an effing trap house last
Right,
night. You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? Like,
I was
there's
being a real B word. I'm like, come on. There are so many better ways you could put that. It's not even really descriptive.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you could not be in a room that is more tolerable of low-level swearing
Straight up.
as Christian folks. But for some reason, I find this reprehensible. I don't see any reason for it.
Dang it.
I think it's because it seems like it's a selfish thing. Because like I can't say God on your time I'll do the God honoring stuff, and then
Right.
on my own time I'm a pornographer.
Yeah, of which I'm making money off
Lots.
of your Christian music genre. He doesn't own it. But you know what I'm saying? His name's in the genre.
What are you talking about? He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills.
Not even his name.
I know. I know why. I think the risk, just because there's a risk that you gloss over difficulties in life. I get it. Like, you want to protect the ability for reality. You want to protect the ability that says, look, can't we all interact with, like, shouldn't we start, isn't there honesty in saying who I am? Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But like, even at my most honest, I don't introduce concepts to my kids that will cause them to stumble, that they don't,
Right.
that they're not mature enough to understand or deal with. And here's the thing. In this room, I know you fellas. I know your backgrounds. I have a sense for these things are going to be stumbling blocks.
Yep, right.
These are not. I work with Buva. I swear on the phone to Buva
Same.
at my place of employment. I don't have this does not hit me at all.
Yeah, and it's never once been a thing between the two of us. We're like, man, we really feel like we're delving into sin because of this conversation.
Yeah, it just does not get me one bit. However, I wrote, and I think I've told the story on the show before, but like I wrote something to graduate college. It was just like a more liberal college, and I just wrote. It was crass. I wrote a story of a piece of fiction, and it was crass. It contained crass themes. It was funny as crap, but it was like It just I shouldn't have done it. And again, give me every 2 or 3 months. I feel guilty about it. I wish I could pull it from the annals at the college that no one could reference it that's got my name associated with it because I shouldn't have done it. And I don't think two shakes about having sworn to Buva somewhere last week on the phone.
Right.
And because it's different.
Yeah, it's not a stumbling block for either of us. It doesn't change our faith. It doesn't shake anything between us and how we know each other or our relationship with God. Nothing changes with that. It's a word.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I get it. And I think we're always it just relates, I think, to our first set of conversations again. Like, you're talking about the sense of human balance between the familiarity of God and the holiness of God. And here it is the honesty and humility it takes to express yourself on where your humanity's at, balanced with the notion of what God calls you to be or who God calls you to be and his power to get you there. And I think these are different conversations individually in your interaction with God and your interaction with the community that can sharpen iron with each other than it is on something you're producing. Mass producing to large groups of people. I think you have a responsibility, just like I have a responsibility the minute I'm going to preach on something. I've taken it upon myself to represent Yahweh in some way or another in a public forum. Even if you're not a pastor, even if you're not a worship musician, you're just a musician. You never cut anything that's no worship tunes or anything. You're still a person who follows Jesus, who said, I'm going to produce something with the explicit intention of a ton of people hearing it. What are you doing with that responsibility? And does it point to you or does it point to Jesus? You're listening to Live from the Path.
All right, we got time for one.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Dear Live from the Path, is it rude to move the front passenger seat in a car if you are only going to be in it for a short time? My fiance and I have been together 9 years.
Oh.
I don't own a car, so he takes me everywhere, and I have the passenger seat adjusted perfectly. When his 17-year-old daughter, who is only in the car once a month or so, gets in his car, the first thing she does is move the passenger seat. We're about the same height and weight, and I see no need for her to do it when she's only in the car for 20 minutes or so. My fiance refuses to ask her to leave the seat where it is, but I feel she's being disrespectful and that he should say something to her about it. Please help. This is causing a lot of arguments and hurt feelings.
I'm going to take this one.
Okay.
Shut up. You are incredibly selfish. This is a ridiculous thing that happens to you once a month that you apparently are so stuck on that it causes arguments between you and your 9-year fiance about this person's 17-year-old daughter, who 17-year-old anythings habitually think of what? Themselves. And ironically, So do you. Grow up.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you this. The reason your fiance is not talking to his 17-year-old daughter is, one, because this is dumb, and two, he's protecting you because you look ridiculous.
Yeah.
I would be embarrassed if I had to bring this up.
Yep.
Although I'll tell you this, though. Like, if someone moved the seat in the car, I'm convinced I can never get it back to where I had it. It doesn't
It's
matter.
the Goldilocks zone.
It doesn't matter where I put it. I'm like, no, this is not quite right.
It's like the perfect level of comfort, like right as you have to get out of bed for the day, but you're up, you don't want to get up, and it's like, I just achieved perfect comfy.
Yeah.
And the second I leave this bed to go take a pee, when I come back, I will have lost
It's
all
not gonna
comfy.
be right. Pillow's going to be all ganked up.
You know what's funny about this is, like, I actually had this thought about 2 years ago, and I thought, like, when does this kick in? Because I've just never had this fickleness about my seat is positioned. So, like, my wife, we got two vehicles, and, like, one of them's a truck. And so at any given time, someone may need it to go pick up something or other. So, like, my wife drives that. My oldest daughter will drive the truck. Otherwise, the truck is primarily mine to drive. That seat is all over the place. And, like, I never have got into it and gone, ugh, I cannot believe it. Like, I just moved the seat back, and it's probably not where I had it, but, like, it'll get me there. I'm waiting for it to kick in. Has this not happened to me yet? Like, it's 2 years down the road.
I don't know, especially those seats that have like 9 different adjustments. I'm like, why'd they move
Where's
the
my
lumbar?
lumbar support?
We should really, I mean, you should really only have to move the front to back, I guess, for a pedal reachage. But like, I don't know why you adjust the back support, because no matter where I put it, I'm like, it's not right.
And it's not doing anything.
No.
It's just Chrysler's way of saying, we're going to charge you $4,000 more.
Yeah.
What the heck? Nathaniel, do you have this problem?
I have before, like, if I drive in a vehicle that my mother's driven in recently, I don't know why. My dad does it too, I think. Like, and they're the only people I know who have their seats set like this, where it's one, they're both kind of short, so it makes a little sense that they're close to the steering wheel.
Yeah.
But also they like do a lean forward.
It's the weirdest thing ever.
Oh.
It's a lean forward.
It's a negative angle for your back.
Which is not the most comfortable for driving around in.
That's weird.
And so, but like, if I'm driving around in their car, I don't mess with it. Like,
So
even if I have to, I'll just deal with it.
Uh-huh,
'Cause
yeah.
it's like, I feel like they will be like, oh, they took our car and messed up the seat. And so I just leave it alone.
Now,
I say, I will be uncomfy.
I may have a different take on this for myself than I do for my very harsh words for the person who wrote into us lovingly. I, as many people know, have afflicted upon myself a status condition. We'll call it obesity.
Okay.
Now, I have forced myself to be a fatty pizza pie guy, right? Like, for me, it's a necessity. I have to move the seat.
Max this thing to the back seat.
I'm almost 6'4", and I weigh more than 185 pounds. Okay? Don't worry about the level of how much more. More.
How much more?
Lots.
Yeah.
Open gator.
Add a tiger. Whole bunch. My wife is the size of my left leg, and we have a small little 4-door coupe. And when she gets in the car, I have to put it all the way up and all the way forward. And when I get in the car, I do the exact opposite. I put it all the way down and all the way back. It's literally, we are the antithesis of each other when it comes to the settings of this car. Now, every once in a while, I'll go, oh gosh, like I got to make sure, and I put the seat back to where it goes. Because it makes sense to be courteous for her that I've done that. Because then when she gets in the car again, it's sweet. She goes, oh, you thought of me. It's back in its original position. If there's a situation where she's gotten out of the car where it's at, where she sits, and I'm about to get in the car, if I'm not paying attention, we're in a real pickle. Because there's a chance that I might get wedged between the seat and the frame of the car or something until I can put the seat back down to where it goes. So, like, it's rough times for me most of the time. But I'm also not the kind of obesity that I'm like, that's fat phobic. I just go, it's just a setting
We're
on
just
a seat.
different. I would mostly be irritated by the 15 seconds it takes.
That's it. Yes, because some of the times people stare me down. Like, where they're like, what's that guy doing? As I'm like bent completely over
Disappearing into the window.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a situation where I can, the big thing is I can't sit down and adjust it. I have to adjust it before I can sit down.
outside the car.
Whereas anyone else can sit into the car and adjust it to where it needs to go. It's the very opposite of each other. But I've never once gone, how disrespectful of someone else to have changed the setting on my vehicle that I can't sit where I'm supposed to go, because most of the time I'm never going to go, hey, I'm fat and this is a problem, it's your fault.
Yeah.
Most of the time I'm going to go, yeah, I did this to myself. Remember all those McDonald's trips? This is what you get, Booba.
The passenger seat. Like, the
Right.
driver's seat is almost normally defined
Passenger.
by who owns the car, right? Like,
Yes.
who drives this thing the majority of the time? To Nathaniel's point, I don't try to fool with people's driver's seats much because it's their rig, right?
Right.
But when I get in the passenger seat, it's free for all, man.
Yes.
I get to do whatever
It's
I
an
want.
expectation.
That's right. You don't have to sit here. I don't even have to drive. There's no safety concerns with me moving the seat around. It's merely for my comfort.
Yeah.
Every adjustment being made is for comfort.
Friggin' Goldilocks is upset that perfect level of achieved seat position is messed up once a month.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Put that in any other perspective, you're going to go, man, I'm a fool. They move the salt and pepper shakers once a month, and I hate them for it.
Yeah.
It's like,
You've
what?
been together since this little girl was 8?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've known this child since. Here's the deal. I'm going to go real sensitive, Booba, for a second. There's more crap going on.
I agree.
You need to deal with that.
Yeah.
There's probably some other points of contention between you and the 17-year-old that is not your child, that probably has stuff going on with actual mom or dad or whatever.
Yeah.
There's stuff there. This is just the most easily point outable annoyance that you have without having to be called out for bigger things.
No, that kid gets in the car and says, I got no F's.
Right.
And then moves the car seat.
Screw you, Elizabeth. You're not my real mom.
Wow. Okay, so overall advice is you're being ridiculous.
Yep. You dropped this directly.
Okay, the question was, but I feel she's being disrespectful and that she should say something to her about it. Please help. Okay, Secular says, I'll try. If you value the relationship you have with your fiancé of 9 years, stop sniping at his daughter and adjust the seat to its original position once a month when you enter the car. This isn't a competition over who he prefers, so stop trying to turn it into one.
Is that legit?
Yeah.
That was great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Way to go, Secular.
Wow.
That's one of the best ones I've ever heard.
I don't like it when we agree with secular.
Agreed. That's
It
true.
makes me feel uncomfortable.
Seemed dangerous.
Right. We just go, ooh,
Yeah.
sitting in this hot
Honestly,
tub.
if it really bothered me, like sometimes you can't control the small stupid things that bother you.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, this really bothers me. This is dumb though. I shouldn't be upset about this. I would turn it into a game. I'd be like, hey, listen, Sarah. When
Right.
you get in the car, like count how many seconds of back you're going so I can put it back in my place. I get feisty. You know what I'm saying? They're
Right.
like, it's ridiculous. And I'm like,
Make it fun and be mature.
I'll count it. And so like we can count to 1, 2, hold it, and then we can high five because we developed that I was a little neurotic and we could all laugh at this.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
That's true. What an awesome opportunity to show love to somebody who might be feeling rough.
Yeah.
All right, you're listening to Live from the Path. I don't know. This one could be contentious for you, too. Maybe let us know. 515-517-0085. Call or text. That's the Bob Eisenhower Live from the Path complaint line. We would love to hear from you and get your thoughts on the show. And let's see. I'm not sure. I think we might be off. You're getting used to this. We might be a week or two. I think people get some traveling going on. So I'm not quite sure when we'll cut another show. Certainly it'll be weeks, not months. But in the meantime, be faithful in the means. God will handle the ends. You've been listening to Live from the Path.